Hey everybody, how you doing? Again, I have to sincerely apologize. That was the first time in 4 years of doing online classes that I did not have a video ready, and I apologize. And I really hate making excuses because I feel like this is the dog ate my homework thing. And I didn't really want to bring in my father's situation into this, but because that was actually something I was dealing with a lot last spring in this spring semester. But now I'm actually handling it as a state, and I appreciate all the well wishes that came in and everything. Thank you for that. And On Friday, when I was supposed to have a video for you and that sort of thing, there was an incident where I'm selling his house, and we're doing showings of the house, and unfortunately, and this is our fault because we left it out. People who went to the house stole things. People, they have showings for a house, real estate showings for a house that's actually being sold. And there were some valuable items that were taken. So we're having to deal with the police and all sorts of things. So it was really crazy. Unfortunately, but that doesn't explain everything. I really actually kind of got into tunnel vision this past week, my job and everything else. And I really deeply apologize. Not bouncing, not being on top of things. So I'd like to get back on track here. I'm actually recording this on Sunday. I see, and actually I had a very busy weekend too, so I haven't been able to get a ton of things done. But Anyway, hopefully all of this is behind us now. Um, the house is actually going through attorney review, and actually has gone through attorney review, so it's just about ready to be done. And it's a really busy job being executive of the state, so it's crazy. But anyway, this is a class that I enjoy teaching the most, especially the summer. Things gets hectic because things move fast. And Fortunately, I had to slow things down a little bit because there were a couple of things that weren't done on Friday. And one of them was the posting of the second assignment, which goes off track from what we've been doing, what we started doing already. That is actually writing stories. I think it's actually important to actually write, really kind of once you kind of get that story out there and get maybe some better idea like how to write one, it's good to maybe kind of laser focus on one specific thing that could be done better. So the lead is the first, typically the first paragraph of a story. And I gave you guys reading assignments that talk about leads and how they're written. But essentially, it's almost like the old-fashioned Twitter tweet, like I mentioned before. It's essentially just basically making a declarative sentence, basically saying, what the story's about and why do I care. Um, it's interesting. I was reading some of the stories, and there were actually a lot of good ones on the first try, and I appreciate that. People were doing the reading and everything, and thank you for that. And Unfortunately, I didn't have a video guys for you guys on Friday to look at to talk about that, but anyway, one thing that's really important to do is to really make sure that your lead in your story really focuses on what's unique, what's interesting. Even it doesn't have to be somebody who climbed Mount Everest, as I probably mentioned before, but just something like there was one lead, and I'm not mocking anybody when I say this or anything like that, but there was one lead. It was actually really interesting. Actually, it was about somebody who's actually there was one story where it was actually about somebody who was um, really like getting involved in real estate. And that was like their focus, and they've already accomplished a hell of a lot by the age of 19 and business wise and all that. But the lead just said, you can follow me here. It just said, so and so wants to be a millionaire. Well, first of all, that's a cliche. Okay. They even named a game show after it. And Or actually will become a millionaire, it said. And second of all, I mean, we don't really know that. We can say that about anybody, right? But think about it. How many people have actually like gotten a real estate license and like actually moved upward into the real estate business at the age of 19 while going to school? That's the unusual, unique part. It doesn't have to be something that's like bam in your face, like the New York Post with a big headline or something like that. It could be just something just could be like inspirational like that, you know? Um, Let me share the screen, show you maybe a couple of examples. Um, So I basically said to that person, I said, that student, I said, let's like focus on what's on the second paragraph. And this person has accomplished a hell of a lot at a young age. Okay. Um, this was I'm a big non-believer in cliches. So I really, and like when you say things like, especially adjectives, you only want to try to avoid like adjectives that aren't factual, that are opinionated. I mean, how many times have you ever heard somebody say left an indelible mark on something, right? But this actually is an interesting story, because this person apparently has done like a lot of interesting things, like basically help design big buildings and everything that are important. That's what you need to say. It's what they call the between. It's my dog. That's my dog. It's the difference between showing and telling. Um, and I may have mentioned this last time, but the showing is where you basically have to really like you have to prove to the reader. You can't if you start getting into opinions and stuff like that, the reader gets suspect, suspicious, that sort of thing. Like you're telling a bunch of crap, like you're selling them real estate or something like that. Okay. What you want to do is you want to like get real and show them the evidence. Okay. And show them. Okay. So if they built like huge buildings in town, then show them tell them what they did. They built a Verrazano Narrows Bridge or something, or even like something smaller, like a 6 foot skyscraper. That's significant. If Rafe, I can't pronounce this as Cornelia has done that, so you don't have to say indelible mark. Just tell me what they did. Like big buildings, schools, and correctional facilities in New York. That's significant. That's huge. Um, I was actually one of the things I was hoping to get more into in this story was basically like specifically what did they build and like that sort of thing. You know, what is going on right now? How is that being accomplished? Any news again is the plural of news. So you want to basically get into that. You want to get into like what exactly is like um new and unique about this situation. I also made a big deal about style, AP style, and I talked about like how AP style is helps keep things consistent and that sort of thing. And one of those AP style elements is making sure that you have, you want to make sure that everything reads the same as pretty much as it does in North Dakota or France or does in New Jersey, right? So one of those things actually is to actually use the last name on second reference. I saw this in a number of papers. Um, you see Rafe, I mean, Rafe is actually an unusual name, but a lot of times the names are like Bobby or something like that. So the idea is actually it's also less objective. It reads when you say something like Bobby said this, it reads like you're being personal with the person or calling them an affectionate name. They get in sportscasters cases sometimes. I remember when they did that when Michael Jordan was playing, they wouldn't call him Jordan, they called him Michael, you know. And it felt like they almost were again kind of giving him a little bit of what's the word? Favoritism of some sort. I know maybe that's a little bit reading into it, but also because the last name is also always a little more unusual than the first name. So that's why that's done. Okay. All right. You want to try to keep your paragraphs like a sentence or two, which most of you actually did, and I appreciate that. Um, this was an interesting story right here about like Juan Haas going into the like maybe revolutionize jewelry industry. Maybe that's a little bit over the top. Try to like avoid those over the top statements. How do we know he's gonna revolutionize? Maybe he just wants to go into the jewelry business industry, and that's interesting to me. You don't have to like blow me away with something. Right here, I felt like we needed to go into more about like what he's doing to actually get there, and that was and that's like interesting to me. He's got some really good ideas. It's one thing to have ideas, but actually to move forward and actually start doing stuff in combination with school, that's actually a step forward. So I thought that should be higher. Okay. Also, here's another AP style thing. Typical style calls for no courtesy titles, Mr., Ms., that sort of thing. Just especially nowadays, these things are, we have a situation now where people understandably like gender is treated more specifically, that sort of thing, or it's treated more, in different ways now. So using a courtesy title is really an outdated thing now, you know. We don't know if whether that person wants to call themselves Ms. or Mrs. or whatever. That's it's So please avoid, the New York Times still uses their courtesy titles, but they're the New York Times because, they're full of themselves. Oh, sorry. Um, this story right here, this was an example of a story where I felt like it was like, I'm sorry, I hate to say this. I don't mean to single people out, but basically you had a story where, it's supposed to be about a woman named Vicky Freeman, but it goes on about this festival. Now, what I want to know is not so much about the festival, but what Vicky Freeman does about it. If that's what makes Vicky Freeman unusual and unique, then we should focus on that. Um, so yeah, it totally just goes on about the festival, the festival, the festival, the festival. Here's another thing too. In conclusion, okay, there are no conclusions in news stories. Okay, a news story is upside down, of an upside down of a typical news story. Your lead is your conclusion. Okay, you don't save the good stuff for the bottom because most people don't read down to the bottom. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to actually get to the news at the top, and then what you do is you deconstruct it after that. And the idea is that it's if you have something interesting enough, people are going to want to read more about it and why it happened, that sort of thing. You don't have to like say, you have to like sum things up at the end. You have to kind of throw away that. I mean, that's perfect for like essay writing and the expository writing and that sort of stuff that you do. There's other classes, but not in this one. Okay. This is news. This is news reporting. Okay. We write about basically what's important and we deconstruct it with a who, what, where, why, how, when questions after that. Okay. All right. Just going over my notes right here. Okay. So that story, now everybody, as I mentioned in the syllabus, everybody gets the chance to rewrite it. Um, so now I'm doing this on Sunday. I'm going to post these tomorrow. I got a bunch of stuff to post actually. And I'm going to talk about this second assignment, which I posted yesterday. It should have been posted on Friday. Again, I apologize for that. But anyway, everybody gets a chance to rewrite it. So far, I'm almost done with all the grading. I have 4 left. I also have a couple people that didn't submit assignments at all. That's an F. There was one person submitted it late, so they got a grade lower. But anyway, this will be a rewrite for every. And it looks like actually there was one person who got an A. I'm sorry, so that person doesn't have to rewrite it, obviously. But everybody else actually, nobody, anybody who got anybody who got a C or above doesn't have to rewrite it, but they should. Okay, it's actually a voluntary, optional, but that's what I factor in class participation. Basically, if you're actually doing the work to make it better, So if you get a C or above, you really should rewrite it, and this will be posted tomorrow, and then you can rewrite it and put in this separate entry right here. Okay. And then of course, this is going to be due on Monday. I know it's a really quick turnaround. This will be posted, but it's about leads. It's a shortish assignment. It shouldn't really take you that long. Let's please get this done by the end of Monday. Okay. And then also you get, not only that, you get a rewrite on that too. You get to rewrite the leads, after I grade them and tell them like whether I feel like they're on the right track or not. Okay. Remember that an R you have to rewrite. Okay. Um, Before I get into the leads assignment, here's also something I posted that's actually due on Thursday. So you got a bunch of things that are due this week. Okay, you got this on Monday, or sorry, you got this on Monday. The leads worksheets, which you could do, please do on a Microsoft Word doc separate. Okay. You have the rewrite of this first assignment that I'm now grading. Should have it all graded, everybody's paper graded by the time this video is posted. And okay, so that's due on Friday. But actually before then is actually the ideas for the next assignment. That's actually an extra credit opportunity. That'll be due on Thursday. So make sure to get that in. That's also a class participation barometer for me. If you actually submit it, then you want to participate in class. So please submit your ideas. I'll explain that in a bit. And then of course the writing, this will be due on Monday of next week, a week from when this be posted Monday, on June 10th, the rewrite of the writing leads assignment. Okay. So anyway, this idea is for the next assignment. This is in our reading and everything too. We talk about the idea of being self-managers, and basically, um, you not only, I mean, again, whenever like anybody had, back in the days when everybody had a newsroom, that sort of thing, they actually liked it when people were not in the newsroom. And what did that mean? The editors, I mean. What did that mean? That meant that they were out actually doing reporting assignments and they were not just sitting on their butts and just like taking it over the phone or through email or something like that. They were actually going out and interviewing people and seeing the things that were out there and that sort of thing. Okay. So editors love it when reporters can basically do their job for them. Okay. So being a journalist means being a self-starter. That means being independent and coming up with their own ideas. It also help you understand the importance of finding a unique angle in a story. So what I want each of you to do, just on a Microsoft Word doc listing 1 through 5, doesn't have to be in any priority order, okay? Please come up with 5 story ideas that are Rutgers related and submit the ideas to this assignment entry by June 8th. I'm sorry. It's June 9th. Anyway, and submit them by June 9th, okay, which is Thursday. Okay. Let's actually just make sure. Oh, what is this? I'm sorry, it says June. I meant to say June 6th. Whoa, sorry. Whoa. Sorry about that leap year. Whoa, okay. All right, so June 6th, it's due. Okay. All right. That's Thursday. I will choose the best idea, and that person will get extra credit. Now, I've had people who have had submitted the same ideas as other people, so they get extra credit too. So when I say one person, I don't mean exactly one person. I don't always choose like necessarily the bestest idea. Okay, I choose the idea that I feel is like most workable, most applicable, and also actually like really fits with what we're doing. And actually, that's also the ideas really should be simple. Be simple too. Simple too. Please, nothing like undercover work or anything like that, like you see on TV or anything like that. Something that could be done within a week. Okay. That's it. Okay. And usually, like, probably the best thing to do is maybe pick out some sort of thing that's happening on campus or whatever. I know it's summer, not a lot's happening on campus, or something that maybe generally happens on campus, something that maybe affects a lot of students, and maybe isn't necessarily going on at this moment, but and getting like student reaction to that. Okay, and then what I'll do is I'll post a discussion point for all of you to participate in. So in addition to being a reporter, you take off that hat, put on your source hat, and act as a source for people for their story. I mean, the reason why I'm doing that is because, if I was doing this class, in person, I would be doing like it in person. I would be actually having people interviewing each other in class for this assignment. Okay. Absent of that, this is what we have to do. We have to do the we have to do the sorry, we have to do the um sorry, I'm petting my dog here. We have to do a discussion point. Here's my dog, by the way. You'll see hello. Hello, doggy. You good, snuggle? Actually, I don't know if you can see them or not. Anyway, is that him? Yeah. Say hi, Bruiser. Hey, Bruiser. A good doggy. Yeah, you're good snuggler. Oh, it's very relaxing to pet a dog, especially after you screw things up. Anyway, all right, so let's go to the assignments now. Back to the assignments, okay? Now, yeah, I mean, this is based. Some of the things I wrote here are based on like some of the things that I've actually like saw like when I initially started seeing the assignments. And yeah, I mean, look, man, I'm not really trying to come down on people, but basically, like, yeah, we have work to do. There's no question about it. Okay. Um, and so basically we need to work on some fundamentals. One thing is like, please no PDFs. There were 3 PDFs. Okay. I can't grade on a PDF. Okay. Just Microsoft Word. Okay. It's just a lot easier for me. Otherwise I have to create like a Microsoft Word document. It's not a creative writing class, so please avoid the glorious adjectives like indelible, that sort of thing. Or I saw another one, ingenious decision. No. That's again, that's telling, not showing, okay? Show me how it's an ingenious decision. It's readers are smarter than that. I mean, you don't want to like tell them how to think. They don't like that, okay? I mean, I know there's a lot of like TV shows on broadcast media, those 24/7 channels that are the just do just that. But most people just want, I hear it all the time. Just give me the news, man. Please stop with all the yakking and yapping and that sort of thing. Just give me the news. Leave out opinion, okay? The adjectives also like indicate some sort of bias sometimes because they're opinionated and that sort of thing, or editorializing. Please write in the third person voice. I haven't encountered anybody who's written in the first person, but he, she, it, they, because that's another way of being objective. You're not writing about yourself. Please keep the paragraphs to two or three sentences, no more than that. And it's full name on first reference, and then of course last name on second reference. Sometimes it's good to maybe read things aloud to try to like and then because that's the natural way people actually kind of read is they kind of like hear things in their head. So sometimes it's good to maybe read things out loud, and then actually you'll find yourself if you have like trouble saying something or sentences is too long. I had a couple of stories where the sentences were run on, sentence just went on forever. You know, you can tell by just reading out loud if you're stumbling over things. I had people like getting into the thesaurus mode where they were using these huge words like I mean, just the stuff as they call SAT words. Please know that, okay? Um, I got obsequious, or something like that. No, please, God, no, okay. Um, Big one. Please do not write leads that look like headlines. Please write full sentences. Okay. So that's like a big issue I've had in the past. And I actually have like a PDF right here where it kind of basically shows like the difference or helps show the difference. There's some discussion of that in the book too. Not enough. But basically, I mean, if you want to look at like a headline is like a different craft. They call it headlinees. That's something that's actually usually your editor will write, not you. Okay. And what that does is it serves like a different purpose. We don't really teach in this class, we teach story writing. Okay. A headline is usually like very short, purposefully. Okay. Um, New York Times is usually the best example, but it's written in like a present tense style. That's actually like, you know, that actually let's see here. After Donald Trump's conviction, a New York Times editor sends his regrets. It sounds like that's happening like right now, but what that's the typical headline is to show some sort of action, that sort of thing. Okay. Yeah. When you would write this as a normal sentence, you would say he sent his regrets. Okay. Meaning that it's past tense. Okay. And then what you would do is you would actually like, write like a full sentence on it. Okay. That actually has like a noun. A lot of times these headlines are missing words, like articles like and the and that sort of thing. Then that may not seem like that important, but when you read the sentence and it lacks it sounds weird. You sound like a robot. Okay. Um, so let's see here. It's trying to, they always write like a little bit long, but anyway, you can see that like there's a John Edwards love child scandal. That's actually he used to guy who ran for vice president, that sort of thing. Um, so anyway, ah, anyway, basically the sentence would be more along the lines of like an that's a big one that's missing from this. A National Enquirer editor is now sending his regrets or has sent his regrets about the way, and you're missing parts of the sentence that are important, about the way he handles his business after Donald Trump's conviction, because it was actually like the National Enquirer, like some of they actually helped Trump hide this scandal with the Stormy Daniels, the porn star, by this process called catch and kill, where they would like come upon a scintillating news story, that sort of thing, and they would and they had some sort of a business relationship with Trump. So what they would do is instead of actually reporting the story, they would catch it and they would kill it and they would pay off the sources and tell them not to reveal any information. Okay. So anyway, which is actually kind of contradictory to what the National Enquirer does. The New York Times, or sorry, the National Enquirer typically pays people to reveal information, not to conceal the information. So that was one thing that turned Trump into a felon, basically, was the fact that he had this kind of shady relationship with the National Enquirer. Yeah. So anyway, a headline is a heading consisting of words and phrases falling above the story in a newspaper, magazine, in radio. A headline is spoken just before the news broadcast. The lead is the first paragraph of a story. After the headline, it is the most informative and impactful part of the story. So it's the first actual paragraph of the story. Its role is to lead the audience into the story's main body. The headline may have an element of surprise or awe aimed at generating the reader's interest, and the lead satiates that interest as well as. So basically, they do that by using fewer words and in present tense. So that's the big difference between a headline and a lead. And what happens is I get a lot of people who do this assignment and they write headlines, not leads. I need full sentences with the uhs and the thes and all that stuff. Okay. And I have that right here. This again is the assignment. And yes, it looks like a worksheet because it is. It's from an old workbook. I always thought it was a very good one. What you need to do is what they do is they provide this like patch of or collection of information like you would get like when you would do some reporting, whether it's on the phone or like in person, writing down your notebook, whatever, writing it down on the typing on a computer, that sort of thing. What you need to do is you need to pick out maybe like one sentence or one part of this and turn it into a one sentence lead, just one sentence. I've had people do the SAT thing or the essay test thing where they write like a 3 sentence lead or something like that, thinking that maybe like, well, maybe he or she got or they got the idea somewhere, one of those 3 sentences. No, the lead is not 3 sentences long, it's one sentence. Okay. What you need to do is you need to go through this, like this first one here, and decide what you think maybe is most important to people. When something happens that maybe is like a step farther than maybe what's typical or usual, that's probably something that should be the lead. Something that's unique. Something that maybe people never learned before. Okay. Something that really stands out. I think like this first one right here. The survey shows 3 to 4 children die every day in the United States of neglect. Okay. I mean, have we ever heard that before? Do we know about that? Statistics in the survey show the number of child abuse and neglected cases reported rose to 2.7 million from 2.5. You know, should that be? I've usually had people write either this is the lead or this is the lead. And what you have to decide is like, does this really stick out? You know, an increase from 2.5 to 2.7 doesn't sound like a huge increase, does it? Still terrible that there's as many people, But what about when it's phrased like this? 3 to 4 children die every day. It's a new fact, something that not everybody knows, or they were just learning now, right? Right here we have a lot of people showing up for a demonstration. We've seen lots of people show up for demonstrations, thousands of people. How many of them get arrested? That's a step further. Okay, so you want to think about that one. Okay, when there's a robbery, like what did they steal? Okay, was it typical what they stole? You want to like think about that. Numbers are big. You're going to hear me say this. I mean, if you're going to report an increase in murders, was it a 1% increase or a 53% increase? If it was a 1% increase, I mean, it's horrible to have any kind of increase in murders, but when it's a whopping increase, that's important. Okay, this is a big one right here for me. Do I really weight each one of these? Not so much, but I mean, there's some that just really have to have certain elements in there. There's crimes in here that basically or happen for like the most unusual reasons, or maybe the most unusual things happened. You know, if they were going to raise tuition, do I want to know how much money's being taken out? That just one sentence on that, and that's it. Okay. And then what you do is there's I know this is a little confusing. All these leads are the same. They call them hard news summary leads, and then they call these impact leads. Basically, you just want to write and you want to write like unless they talk about the future, then you write in future tense. But if they talk about something that's already happened, then it's in past tense. Okay. So you want to basically write that sharp one sentence that's a full sentence that basically gets to the idea and basically use a unique element of the idea okay, that would like lead a story and basically hook somebody into it and get them interested in reading, okay? All right, so that's what that one is about. And please get that done by the end of today. Again, thinking that this is being posted on Monday. All right, I'm just kind of going through my things here. All right, so let's go through some of the reading right now too, actually. All right, let's see what we got here. And what I asked you guys to read, and it actually, again, this helps support what I'm talking about in class, okay? A little bit of coffee right here. Okay, again, I hope you saw this, the please read. Um, okay, again, I don't test on the reading, but I do help supplement. And I think if you guys are reading already, which is great because I didn't have a lecture for you on Friday, and I see you're actually writing these stories the way I mostly like the way I like you to. So I think you're catching on. That's great. I appreciate that. Okay. So I asked you guys to read chapters 3, 4, and 11. Chapters 3 really talks about, basically a news writing style, how things are succinct. The following story is written in news writing style from facts gathered from reporters, clear about something that happened. Can you see why this event might be important to the audiences? A third robbery this month at University Apartments on Washington Street has tenants worried about their safety and their building security. So maybe one of the things that's actually important about that is not just one robbery, but three. Okay. Going a step further than the typical occurrence, not just one, but three. This is all about why journalism is nonfiction storytelling to a large audience with varied interests, education levels, ethnicities, ages, genders. Okay. With their good news judgment and audience in mind, journalists identify immediately the importance of the story and the supporting elements. Okay. Two thieves with nylon stockings, blah, blah, blah. And then you're going to go into like who, what, where, how, why, when. Well, who were they? Well, there were two thieves wearing a nylon stocking. Everything focused from top to bottom. Okay. They had high-end gaming headsets. A quote kind of comes in and helps, like, basically, like, people basically, humanize the story, that sort of thing. Again, the idea here is to really try to keep things simple. Do not swallow the thesaurus. Like it shows here, like these long paragraphs, okay, are really hard to read. They read like textbooks, okay. The mayor said he was happy the city council had passed a long-awaited resolution to increase the town's public library tax to provide more economic funding to expand the library's book collection, to remodel his outdated website. I can't even read all that, man. I can't take a breath. You want people to take a breath in between sentences, okay? The mayor said he was happy the city council passed a resolution increasing the public library tax, but that it was not enough for everything. Money is always important. Okay, so he's going into this whole spiel about like government decisions and economic funding and blah blah blah. But what does the average reader want to know? They want to know how much more than what they're paying. So you take all of this collected information and you kind of narrow it down to like what's most important to like a shorter sentence. Okay. All right. All right. Eliminating necessary words. Um, Fatalities seem more common. I see people like writing things like almost like the preface what's being said. Just go right to the point. 1 out of 100 America 65 and older die from COVID. Okay, have died from COVID, whatever, or died from COVID every day or something. Okay, I mean fatalities. See, that's actually just being redundant and obvious. Okay, you really just want to get right to the point. Obviously, accuracy is very important. It speaks to the credibility of the reporter. That's why you avoid things like famous celebrity, gala reception. Those are like these kind of like fancy adjectives that really kind of maybe even overstate the case and are not objective. Obviously, you want to like try to have diversity in your reading. You know, you want to have like people from all different viewpoints. Okay. Chapter 4 does more of the same, the language of news. Basically, how it's done. It's very declarative. It's very much down before verb. Active voice is what they call it. Okay. Now the wine complimented the entree. The airport commission decided to hold a public hearing. Very straightforward is how this sentence is I don't like questions in stories. I believe that stories should really provide the answers, not the questions, okay? Um, kind of chapter 4 breaks down a little bit things like goes into like a little bit of an English lesson, which really is not so much for this class, but it talks about like in case you need a refresher, like what a noun is, what that sort of thing is. Run on sentences. We want to avoid something. I would say probably the best barometer there is to like if you can read it out loud without having to breathe, that's a good sentence, okay? But if you do what I just had to do right there, where it just goes runs on and on and on, nobody's going to read it. They're going to think that they have to go back to grade school and have to read a textbook or something, okay? Spelling is important because it speaks to the credibility of the reader and the reporter. I'm sorry, reporter. Okay, and also obviously accuracy the same way. Having the appropriate punctuation, um, you know, commas, being used correctly, that sort of thing. Puncture, basically try to also avoid exclamation points because that also seems to indicate some sort of like a opinion or something like that. It kind of you don't know whether people are actually like shouting or being excited or something like that. Okay. Um, strong verbs basically like, but I mean, some of this in chapter 4. I'm forced to read you these books, but but basically overuse of adjectives are some of the points that I've backed up before. You don't have to say frivolous lawsuit. You just say lawsuit, okay? Um, and that's chapter 4. Now let's go to chapter 11. All right. And that would be, I'm sorry, that's not there. Interviewing. We're not getting into the inverted pyramid just yet. But anyway, interviewing. Um, so, it's interesting, like when we talk about interviewing, the importance of interviewing really is like um, making sure that you maintain control over the interview. Okay. Being prepared. It's always good to have like a list of questions and that sort of thing prepared beforehand. Getting again, use as a spine of your interview list, essentially like who, what, where, how, why, when, that sort of thing. Okay. Being comfortable, that sort of thing. But basically, what you want to do is, people have asked me over and over again, like, what is the best way to start an interview? And the best way to start an interview actually is to keep things as open-ended as possible. You know, the story is actually supposed to be like written like almost like kind of like a conversation where you're kind of answering people's questions and sort of thing. But the interview is something different. The interview actually tends to become awkward, especially if you're dealing with somebody new. Okay, somebody you don't know beforehand. Okay, and it almost really resembles more like a job interview. Why are you here? Why are you applying for this job? Very open-ended questions, that sort of thing. And if you notice, like a lot of times when you have a conversation like that with somebody you've never met before or something like that, maybe you're like in a room with somebody and you don't and you feel kind of awkward because there's somebody else in there and you feel like you have to start some sort of a conversation. Sometimes just like you just start off by saying something like, so what's new with you? Why are you here? Or something like that. And then what happens is what makes the conversation comfortable is when you hit on that, maybe that one thing that is actually more interesting than not. Okay. That one thing that actually like is the unique thing, the really thing that sticks out or something like that. The person who's like building all the big buildings or something like that in the town, like we had showed in that one story. Well, what do you do? Well, I build all these big buildings in this town. Are famous, really? And then suddenly, what happens is the conversation should then go from that what I call macro level to what it should be a micro level. So all the questions should go from like being kind of diffuse and spread out and that sort of thing to this more specific line. And then what you want to do is you want to stay on that line, the buildings, the buildings, the buildings, the buildings, the buildings. Okay. You want to stay on that line for the rest of the interview. Okay. Just stay on it and stay through it. Okay. All right. So just make sure that like that's what you're doing. Think of it as like a funnel. Okay. Start with the open-ended, the awkward questions just to get some sort of reaction response, and then try to hit on that one thing that really kind of sticks out and then stay focused on that. Okay. Next week, I'm going to ask you to read chapter 7, 9, and 10. We can do a little bit of look at that now too, since we fell a little bit behind because of me. I'm sorry again. I'm sorry. Basic news leads. Okay. You know, basically they are, what we got here? Um, basically, I mean, it shows you the different things like a central point in the story, and then how it breaks into different like things that can be like used in the different platforms. But it's also very important to always find like that central point, like I just described. And a lot of times that's actually found in the interviewing process. Okay. Almost like when a lot of times when you're actually like thinking about a right or interviewing a story or probably somebody over a story, try to think about like almost like you're writing the story in your head. Okay. All right. You know, let's see here. Leads and the basic questions. Zelensky from blah blah blah. You know, basically this is about a who, about what he's doing and what he's saying. What happened? This is a story about what happened. 10 people were killed during a mass shooting. It's terrible. When I mean when this hurricane was expected to land, where basically like it's whole like something that happened in a certain area. I mean, this is sometimes like a lead can be as the specific answer to that like one individual question: who, what, where, how, why, when. Okay. Um, let's see. Sorry, back to this 7, 9, and 10. Yeah. And then also it goes into like the difference between the headline and the lead. Impeached once again. Well, now he's actually been indicted. But that's the headline. See how it's just there's not a lot there, It's just basically like just to kind of grab your attention. Trump indicted. Actually, that was a headline I just saw anywhere. But then the actual lead is actual sentence. Okay. President Trump was impeached by the US House for historic second time Wednesday, charged with incitement of insurrection over the deadly mob siege the Capitol. Okay. That's a lot different from the headline. Being concise. Okay. Two women, about two women stole a purse containing $50 from a local shopper. It gets into this whole, instead of going in all different sideways directions and everything about being distracted and all this stuff, just say what happened. Money was stolen. Okay. Actually, that's passive. That's passive voice. Putting the putting the verb before the noun. Anyway. All right. Let's see here. The body of a news story. Okay. So what we got here? So, portion of a news story that follows the lead is the body contains the information a reporter believes the public needs to know. This information can be presented in several styles. Inverted pyramid, hourglass. Basically, it's typically what they call the inverted pyramid. Okay. And this is actually something I wanted to get to. We could finish up. But anyway, the inverted pyramid basically proves to you that like essentially a news story is written in this kind of like upside down way. Okay. This will be the last thing I'll talk to you about today. All right, and what I'm trying to do is I'm actually trying to get rid of this part. There we go. All right, so let me kind of expand this out a little bit. Yeah, like that. There you go. Wow. Okay, not going too crazy here, people. Anyway, so what this is what it does. It shows that basically the most important stuff happens at the top, and that's the fat part of the upside down triangle. And that's why, and what you do is you deconstruct after that. Every detail. Now I always think this was an overly simplistic way of actually describing how a news story is written and how it works and how it's structured. Because sometimes actually a lot of the details are just equally important. But the idea is overall, usually what you have is like if you have like a crime story or something like that, you basically report the accident and maybe the most significant thing about it, which usually maybe if somebody died, that's usually the most significant thing that's happened because that's what people worry about the most. Before like whether it's going to tie up traffic or something like that, I think people have compassion. They care about these things. They want to see, they might know the person, that sort of thing. Okay. And then then what you do is the first thing you want to know is what happened, why it's such a big deal, that sort of thing. But the next thing you might want to know is that's maybe not as important is the identifying the people because maybe that it's not as important because maybe this will matter more to like people who know people, these people or something like that. And that's important to write and it's important. It should be up high, but it's not as important as actually reporting the actual incident. Okay. Then maybe like as you go down, how it occurred. I mean, if it was something that was really crazy, like maybe it was a cell phone texting or something like that. Then like the charges. Actually, I'd want to know also like if it tied up traffic and that sort of thing. But what you're supposed to do is actually you're supposed to play your own editor and take each of these details, like one paragraph at a time, two paragraphs at a time, whatever, and basically try to figure out maybe with your own use your own judgment what you think maybe is the most important to the least important. Usually, like what the story is about, almost always is the most important thing in the story and should be at the very top. Okay. That's why we don't have conclusions at the end of the story, because that's essentially what the lead does, is it essentially concludes what the story is about. Okay. The Verted Pyramid is a story about a two-car conclusion injured people might contain a sequence of paragraphs similar to those outlined. Okay, in the figure. So normally reporters emphasize people, what they do and what happens to them. Consequently, the injuries the people would be described early in the story. Damage to the cars is less important, will be reported later. It might also be left out unless it was unusual. Paragraph 3 would describe the accident itself, the recent action, main point of the story. Quotations add detail and color. They can come in, but they're not as important. Okay. All right. And again, when you're dealing with like a news story like we've been doing, like, about a person, that sort of thing, you want to have something that basically, um, emphasizes again what's new and unique, because that's what the most important thing of the story typically. Okay. What makes me give me reason to read this story and that sort of thing. And then what you would do is you go into like, I had people who kind of immediately, sorry, it's actually looks like a little stuck. I'm trying to stop the share. Okay. So what you didn't, then what you have, I always get this question too, where does the background come in? Maybe the stuff that happened like a month ago or 2 months ago or years ago or something like that. Well, that goes toward the bottom of the story. Okay. There was one story I had where somebody was actually like went through like this kind of situation like 6 years ago or something like that, where I think they had a brain hemorrhage or something. It was really terrible and to read that. But what was important to me was not necessarily what happened with the brain hemorrhage 6 years ago, but what is that person going through right now? And that person right now, actually, it's an inspirational story because this person is actually trying to live a normal life, but is going through disabilities and has seizures and things like that, but is still trying to maintain in like an upbeat thing. That to me is more important. Is this person still alive? Is this person still around? Is this person dealing with it? That's what people want to know. Okay. If you write about a traffic accident that happened, you actually obviously want to write about it when it happens and that sort of thing. But if you write about a traffic accident 6 months later, what are you going to want to know? You want to know how the people are doing, how they survive, are they coping, or that sort of thing. Okay. All right. So I think we are done. Okay. And again, I really deeply apologize again for missing this lecture. There will be one on Friday. I will post it. I'll make sure of that. Okay. Please, we have all those different things that are due. We have again the you should have all by the time this it'll be looking at this video, you should have all of the um, profiles back to you. Please rewrite them by June 7th, which is Friday. Forget the ideas are due on Thursday, June 6th. Okay. Don't forget that the leads are due today, Monday. Okay. And then the rewrite for the leads are due a week from today. Okay. All right. Thanks very much, everybody, and I'll talk to you.